I never craved their validation. At least that's what I kept telling myself as I stood in my corner office, staring out across the Seattle skyline, the low hum of the city drifting faintly through the tall glass windows. An email notification blinked quietly on my screen. It was from my younger sister. Dad lost his job. Mom's medical bills are drowning us. I know you have your own expenses, but if you can help at all. A short, dry laugh slipped from my mouth, brittle and empty. If only they actually knew. 12 years earlier, when I was only 16, I had been standing in the cramped living room of our townhouse in Tucson, Arizona. My acceptance letter from the Rhode Island School of Design rested proudly on the coffee table, while my father's face darkened like an approaching thunderstorm. Art. That's not a real career, Nadia. He waved the letter around like it was contaminated. You're going to throw your life away chasing nonsense. Grow up. My mother stood near the window, quiet and withdrawn the way she always did when his temper flared. She rarely defended me, instead shrinking back into silence, leaving me alone to face his anger. I've got a partial scholarship, I said softly, and I've saved money from tutoring and summer jobs. It's enough. No, you're going into engineering like your sister. End of discussion. But that time, something inside me refused to close the door. No, that single word cracked open something in the room. His face flushed red, his fists tightening at his sides. Then get out. If you think you're so independent, prove it. Just don't come crawling back. That night, I shoved thrift store clothes into an old duffel bag while my sister Maria stood in the hallway staring at me wide-eyed. You're serious? I have to be. I can't keep living someone else's life. As I zipped the bag shut, my mom slipped quietly into the room. She didn't speak much, she never did, but she pressed a small object gently into my hand, a faded velvet pouch. Your Aunt Sophia wanted you to have this when the time was right. I think the time is now. Inside the pouch rested a delicate silver pendant, along with a small folded note taped to a tiny brass key. A safety deposit box. I didn't open the letter until later that night, curled up on a stiff motel bed outside Phoenix. Nadia, if you're reading this, you've already taken the first step toward becoming who you were meant to be. I'm proud of you already. And in that moment, I understood something clearly. I would never return, not to beg, not to explain, only to build a life of my own. Always knew you would. That was the opening line of Aunt Sophia's second letter. The key unlocks box 132 at Puget Sound Credit Union. Open it when you're ready. Inside, you'll find what you need to begin. And remember, true art isn't only about creating beauty, it's about recognizing value where others see nothing. With all my love, Aunt Sophia. The next morning, I walked into Puget Sound Credit Union, my fingers trembling slightly as I handed over my ID at the counter. The safety deposit box itself was small, but what it contained felt enormous. Several pieces of antique silver jewelry, stacks of carefully tied documents, and a letter written in Aunt Sophia's elegant looping handwriting. That letter revealed a hidden truth. Aunt Sophia hadn't just been a casual collector of pretty things. She had quietly built a serious career as an antique dealer, creating a private legacy no one in the family had ever talked about. The silver pieces in the box weren't cheap souvenirs, they were authentic Art Nouveau and early Art Deco designs, rare, beautiful, and passed carefully through generations. Take these to Marco Duca at Rain City Antiques. He'll recognize their true value. My legs nearly buckled when Marco completed the appraisal. The jewelry inside that small box was worth more than $430,000, but the number itself wasn't the real turning point. Marco leaned back, studying me carefully. You've got an eye for detail most people never develop. Ever thought about learning the business? That moment sparked everything. Marco took me under his wing, teaching me the craft. How to authenticate precious metals and stones, how to track provenance records, how to negotiate quietly at auctions, and how to recognize hidden treasures buried inside dusty estate sales. I was completely hooked. By 19, I launched a small online vintage jewelry shop. By 23, I opened my first boutique in Capitol Hill. Now at 26, I owned a chain of private antique galleries across the West Coast with a personal net worth of over $14,600,000 and not a single newspaper headline carried my name. My family still believed I was working random retail jobs or renting a tiny apartment somewhere in Spokane. I preferred it that way, quiet growth, low visibility, until that email from Maria. Dad lost his job. Mom's drowning in hospital bills. Could you help even a little? I stared at the message for a long moment before picking up my phone. Hey Maria, bring Mom and Dad to my office tomorrow. Your office, like the consignment shop you used to help out at. No, my real office, Rainier Tower. I'll text the address. Maria laughed uncertainly. We'll see. Rainier Tower. You can't just walk in there pretending. I smiled, glancing at the sweeping city views outside my windows. I bought Rainier Tower outright last spring. Trust me, Maria, they'll let me in. Just be there. 9 a.m. and tell Mom and Dad to bring every page of their mortgage paperwork. The next morning, I stood at the window of my office, top floor of Rainier Tower, watching as my family's weathered blue SUV pulled into the private entrance below. Even 30 stories up, I could sense the uncertainty in their movements as a uniformed security guard stepped forward, guiding them past the main lobby to the executive elevator reserved for only a handful of occupants. A gentle chime from the intercom broke my focus. Miss Russo, your family has arrived, my assistant said. Send them in, I replied, my voice calm as I turned from the window to face the door. The moment they crossed the threshold, I saw the shock ripple through them. Dad froze in the center of the sleek office, eyes darting over the polished walnut floors and floor-to-ceiling windows framing the sunlit Seattle skyline. Mom clung to the door frame, her gaze sweeping across the space in stunned silence. Maria stood stiffly behind them, blinking rapidly, as if trying to erase the scene by sheer willpower. They'd come expecting a cramped consignment shop, a shared workspace at best. Not a high-ceiling gallery office, hybrid, adorned with rare Art Nouveau sculptures and glass cases, showcasing antique silver and precious gems. Not a custom-designed rosewood desk, once part of a Rockefeller estate. And certainly not this panoramic view of Seattle sprawling beneath me like a quiet triumph. Nadia, Mom whispered, voice trembling. What is all this? I gave her a gentle smile. This is my office. Welcome to Russo Fine Art and Antiquities. My father's expression darkened, cycling from confusion to indignation to rage in seconds. No, he barked, stabbing a finger in my direction. You work retail. You live in a tiny apartment. He scoffed. I've seen you post pictures of cheap dinners and laundromats. I stepped closer to a glass case and tapped lightly on the surface, indicating a delicate Art Deco brooch I'd once purchased for just $700. Actually, I'm the CEO and founder of the largest private antique brokerage on the West Coast. Those posts, they were carefully curated fiction. Maria's mouth fell open, but no words emerged. The Rainier Tower, she finally stammered. Belongs to me, I finished softly. Technically, the property was under the firm's name, but since I owned the firm, it was mine all the same. That's when Dad exploded. You kept this from us. We're your family, secretly succeeding, secretly building something real, proving you wrong. I walked back to my desk, sat down, and nodded toward the folder clutched in his hand. Now let's talk about your mortgage. A heavy silence filled the room. Dad's anger evaporated into stunned quiet. Mom reached out, fingertips tracing the polished edge of my desk, searching for proof. This wasn't some impossible dream. Maria just stood there, lips parted, staring at the original Chihuly sculpture shimmering beside my espresso station. I opened my laptop, clicked into my business dashboard, and slowly pivoted the screen toward them. Since we're being truthful now, here's my current balance, $14,236,542. Mom let out a sharp gasp, her hand flying to her chest. Dad's fingers whitened around the arm of the sleek leather chair. Maria dropped the folder. She'd been clutching like a lifeline the same fancy leather portfolio she'd proudly shown off last Christmas after her big promotion. This, I said calmly, sliding a thick file across the desk, is why you're here. You're 3 months behind on your mortgage. Foreclosure proceedings have started. Maria blinked rapidly. How do you know that? I didn't flinch. I own a controlling stake in Cascadia. Trust your mortgage lender. I know everything. I turned my gaze to Dad. Your risky day trades, Mom's medical bills, then to Maria and your condo, flip in Capitol Hill, completely underwater. For a moment, the room was painfully silent except for the quiet hum of the city outside. Finally, Dad's voice scraped its way out. You knew we were drowning and said nothing. We're your family, Nadia. I rose slowly, placing both palms firmly on the cool surface of my rosewood desk. Do you remember the night you told me to leave? Don't come crawling back when you fail. Those were your words. We were trying to protect you, Dad protested, eyes narrowing in defensiveness. No, I said, my voice calm but implacable. You were trying to control me. That's not the same thing. I walked over to the vast window, the Seattle skyline blazing with sunlight, the Space Needle visible in the distance, a symbol of the empire I'd quietly built over the past decade. 10 years, I continued softly. No help, no faith, just me, my instincts, and the key Aunt Sophia gave me. Mom's eyes snapped up, confusion written across her face. Sophia, what did she give you? Faith, I said, turning back toward them. She believed in me when none of you did. She knew I'd build something real. I let my gaze sweep across their stunned faces. Every holiday you mocked me. Still playing with antiques, Nadia, come work as Maria's assistant. Nadia. Maria dropped her eyes to the floor. But now, I continued, voice low and steady. Now that you've seen my bank balance, suddenly I'm worth your time again. Suddenly I'm family. My father sat up straighter, slipping into his business tone. We can talk about all this later. Right now we need to stop right there. I cut in, raising my hand, my voice cool as steel. Before you say anything else, let me show you something. I pressed a discreet button on my desk. Behind me, the massive digital screen embedded in the wall flickered to life. One by one file windows blossomed across the display, and what I revealed next changed everything for them and for me. If you're as curious as they were, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter of how secrets became my greatest power. Bank statements, property deeds, loan defaults, investment records. This, I said steadily, sweeping my hand toward the glowing screen, is everything. Every loan, every debt, every bad decision. The total amount to wipe the slate clean and stabilize everything is exactly $2,400,000. My father's eyes flickered with something I hadn't seen in a decade. Hope. Maria's lips parted, caught between disbelief and relief. Mom reached out, brushing her fingers lightly over the back of my hand. I pulled away gently. I've had that money set aside in a reserve account for years, I continued. Every time the foreclosure letters came, every time things spiraled, I was watching, waiting for what Maria whispered. To see if any of you would change. If you take responsibility, but you never did. I rose from my chair again, letting silence expand in the room until it pressed against the glass walls. Instead, you borrowed more, mortgaged the house again, blamed bad luck. I crossed the room and sank back into my desk chair, sunlight glinting off the Chihuly sculpture behind me. Here's what's going to happen, I said, my tone crisp. I'll clear every debt. I'll save the house, and I'll set up a trust to keep all of you financially secure. Voices burst out in overlapping relief. I lifted my hand again, and the room fell silent. But I said firmly, there are conditions. The air went still. First, I said, meeting Dad's eyes, you retire. No more stocks, no more crypto schemes, just rest. You've earned it, but you've cost us enough. His jaw clenched, eyes dropping. Second, I turned to Maria, you're dissolving the failing Capitol Hill condo project. Then you'll enroll in the music therapy program you once dreamed of before real estate swallowed you. Maria's eyes widened, a single tear slipping free. She hadn't spoken of that dream in years. Third, I said softly to Mom, you're finally opening the bookstore near Green Lake. I'll fund it. Mom gasped, eyes shining. That dream had been shelved 3 decades ago to support Dad's ambitions. And finally, I said, looking at each of them, we're going to therapy weekly together. because this isn't just about money anymore. Dad inhaled sharply, ready to protest, but Mom placed a gentle hand on his arm. "Do it," she said softly, "all of it." I nodded once and pressed the intercom button. "Jasmine, bring in the contracts." "These documents make everything official," I said, passing the thick folders across my desk. "Take them home, read every line." They nodded, still rattled. Dad's hands trembled as he held the documents like they might disappear. As they turned to leave, I spoke once more, voice soft but unwavering. "And Dad, that thing you said 10 years ago about me calling when I failed." He turned, his face tangled with guilt, pride, and regret. "I never failed," I said quietly. "I just succeeded without you." They left without another word, the silence trailing behind them like a shadow. I stood at the window, watching their SUV merge into Seattle traffic. Moments later, Jasmine stepped in and set a cup of chamomile tea on my desk. "You okay?" she asked gently. I paused, thinking of those lonely nights working. Until dawn, the empty holidays, the moments I doubted everything. Then I thought of this peace, this clarity. "Yeah," I said finally, a small smile tugging at my lips. "I think I finally am." The next morning, they returned with signed documents, tentative smiles, and the weight of a different future hanging between us. It didn't change everything overnight. Years of silence and wounds don't disappear with a signature, but it was a start. Dad truly retired this time, apologized to me one quiet morning over coffee. I didn't cry, but his words cracked something open. Mom opened the Violet Finch bookshop in Fremont, a cozy place between a record store and a coffee roastery. Locals love it, so does she. Maria dissolved the condo project and enrolled in music therapy. Now she teaches at a community center in Ballard. Her laughter doesn't sound forced anymore. As for me, I kept building, but no longer in hiding. No more shrinking my wins, no more pretending to be small so others felt bigger. Because real power isn't proving people wrong, it's proving yourself right. On my desk sits Aunt Sophia's old jewelry box. Inside is the one piece I never sold, a simple gold locket, her photograph tucked inside. On the hard days, I open it and read her note again. True art isn't just about creating beauty, it's about recognizing worth where others see none. She was right, and the rarest treasure I ever discovered was my own worth. If my story resonates with you, drop a comment below. Tell me your aha moments, share. If you've ever had to walk away from those who didn't believe in you, or if you're still searching for your voice. This isn't just my story, it's for anyone who's been underestimated, dismissed, or quietly pushed aside. Let's connect, let's build a community for builders, dreamers, the black sheep turned visionaries. I didn't share this for pity or praise, I shared it because we're often told to shrink ourselves to keep others comfortable, because ambition is labeled defiance instead of growth. My advice: don't wait for permission to become who you're meant to be. Choose yourself even when no one else does. For those still in the fight, keep going. The loneliness won't last forever. Your work matters, you matter. One day, when those who doubted you finally see what you've built, you won't need their validation. You'll already have your own. If you're ready to support stories like mine and others who have turned pain into power, hit that subscribe button. Let's keep telling stories that matter. And if you're harboring dreams you haven't spoken aloud, yet let this be your sign: you don't need their approval.